Huomenta. God morgon, I can say to some of our Nordic guests also. So I welcome you all to this research data breakfast. And I start with an instructions to the other speakers that you should keep the microphone something like I do, because that's the way people can hear you, not only here in the room, but also those who are following us on the video stream. So that's so far we go in technical instructions. So I'm very happy that so many have joined us for this event that we have organized from CSC together with RDA. We have the RDA Secretary General here today, Hilary Hanaho, who will speak after me here. And we will have a panel moderated by Leif Laxonen, CSC greyback on research data, with a number of the Finnish actors in this field. So if we have research data for breakfast, what will we have for dinner? That's the question. But research data is, of course, a topic that for long have been in the focus of researchers. And we've been struggling with it in research in many ways, and being the asset we have in research also. It's now turned into something very important for society in general, that it can be used in many new contexts. Data that have been produced in one context can be used in many other contexts. And we see the great promises here that are made, and I think many of us are actors that have to think about this. Can these promises be fulfilled? Can we actually make sure that the research data get managed and handled in such way that it can be used in the many different ways that are here, and that they can benefit society in general? Because it's also, we live in a time where knowledge by itself is actually questioned from many places. And so we need to be very careful here what we do and how we address these topics. And it's also great commercial interest in play here. We have, one could be really start to wondering what is going on when world's largest retailer in merchandise and media and the largest advert seller in the world are the most active players here to asking to handle research data, grab the research data, we can help you with it, what is going on? I'm thinking of companies like Amazon and Google, of course. So there are many forces in play here. We really have to think as actors in this and producers of the data and users of the data, primary users of the data. How are we working with it? How are we working with our governments and the institutions that are available in the society to the benefit of research and the society at large when it comes to research data? And one of the global actors here is RDA, the Research Data Alliance. And I will not present any further. I let Hilary to start her presentation here. And maybe you can tell a bit about your background and about RDA, and we will learn more about it. Okay. Welcome, Hilary.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just put the slides up, if that's okay. I hope you can hear me. Good morning. My name's Hilary Hanaho. I'm the Secretary General of the Research Data Alliance since February this year. My background is in, I worked with the Research Data Alliance for a large number of years. One of my major roles in that was all the communications and the plenary management. And then I was very fortunate to take on this position in February. I would like to thank very much CSC for organising this meeting today, and I had previous meetings yesterday. Our community in Finland has always been a very prominent and active one. Our support in Finland has always been very important to us. And we've, in fact, CSC have been involved in the Research Data Alliance since its start in 2013. So we're over five and a half years old now. So this morning I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Research Data Alliance and how it enables open science both locally and globally. So once upon a time there was an organisation, that data facility, that was had to deal with different data types, from chemical, biological, physical measurements and results. And the data that that was developed in the course of that scientific research needed to be disseminated, protected, and stored on short and intermediate timeframes. So the existing system it allowed the researchers to cite the data and subsets of the data, but it didn't have a mechanism for managing those citations as new versions of the data became available. So in order to deal with this problem, the organisation decided that they would enable it to cite the data so that any changes could be efficiently process the data and link it from publications. The researchers would be able to apply a common data model to organise their data and make it therefore accessible and reusable. And that the producers of the data could classify their data sets, to allow them to be identified and to process and visualize the data. And also that standard persistent identifier types were able to simplify the verification of that data, identity and integrity. So without those 4 different solutions, it wouldn't have been possible for the data citations to be made, and therefore the responsible researcher wouldn't have been able to make updates or corrections to any of the data that was sets after the citation had been generated. So what does that have to do with the Research Data Alliance? These 4 solutions are recommendations, or what we like to call recommendations, but outputs directly generated by the community that works inside the Research Data Alliance. A community of over 7,000 people from across the globe, 137 countries, which I'll show you in a minute. And they, who produce these solutions and outputs together with their colleagues from all across the world. So we have a vision. It's a rather ambitious vision, but it is that the researchers and innovators openly share data across technologies, across disciplines, and across geographical boundaries or countries to address the grand challenges of society. It's an ambitious vision, as I said, but we have a mission, and our mission is to build the social and the technical bridges that enable the open sharing and reuse, of course, of data. And I showed you a couple of the technical bridges, and our social bridges are equally as important to us. So what is RDA? It's quite simple. RDA is a network, a platform of individuals from across the globe who come together to form focused working groups and exploratory interest groups. There are 2 main mechanisms for producing these type of outputs that you saw before: to exchange knowledge, discoveries, and discuss barriers and solutions and everything to enhance and facilitate the global sharing of data and reuse. Data sharing and reuse, excuse me. We have 6 guiding principles, and these guiding principles underlie everything that we do, that the community does. And they are based on openness, consensus, balance, harmonization, community drive, and that we are non-profit. Okay? I'll tell you a little bit more about how that's actually done, but it is quite simple. We have the heart of RDA, as I said before, those that produced those 4 and the other 21 recommendations and outputs that we have today, is based on individual members. Individual members, 7,100 of them from, as I said, all over the world. And they come together. We ask, it's obviously free to become a community member of the Research Data Alliance. We just ask that you agree and adhere to our guiding principles. And there are many benefits from being an individual member. But I will tell you who, I'll give you some idea of who is involved in RDA in terms of people and countries, and also a little bit about Europe, and then a little bit about the Nordic countries as well, as we are here. So we were, officially the Research Data Alliance was launched in March 2013. And if you see that graph, it just goes to show you that there's been steady growth of our membership across over the years. And we're now, as I said, at 7,180 members. The type of organizations that these members come from is, as you can see, rather large grouping from academia and research, which is our main focus, by the way. And though we talk about researchers and innovators, industry is important to us, but indeed, when we started out, the main focus was indeed academia and research. The type of, shall we say, job profile, if you like, of our members, you can see there on the graph. The major one is researchers. We have lots of librarians as well, IT and different. So it's just to give you a flavour of the type of people that we are involved in the work. We have members from 137 different countries around the world. And if you see on the top right there, you'll see the over 50% of our community is actually based in Europe. Possibly because we have a very, very strong program of awareness raising and communication, dissemination and outreach in Europe. Also part of that program is indeed the work that the CSC itself is doing, or events like today and lots of other events. So we have a strong and a very important community in Europe. In fact, it's 3,700, I think, are the members. And you can see the shading tells you more or less the concentration of our members in Europe. Just to let you know about this part of the world. So in the Nordic countries, our largest community is from Finland. Indeed, we still have a very good, it's about 10% of our European membership comes from the Nordic countries. And we hope to grow and increase that. It is also true that, you can become a member of the Research Data Alliance by signing in online, but most of the practically all of the information online is open. You do not have to be logged in to do that. If you wish to follow groups and get involved more in the conversation, of course, we do ask that you must be a registered member and adhere to the guiding principles. So, in practical terms, how does it work? Well, simply, I said there were two main mechanisms, and these are the two main mechanisms. We have these focused working groups, okay, so community members from around the world set up working groups because there's a specific problem or challenge that they are looking to resolve. They're short-term groups. They have 12 to usually 18, to be honest, it's usually 18 months. And they have a definitive output with their concrete deliverables, and they can be in many different formats. At the moment, we have 32 working groups going on, and I will go through, I'll show you the slides of some of the different areas that they focus on, but we have 93 groups altogether, so I wouldn't like to, it's bad enough boring you to death with PowerPoint, I'm not going to bore you to death with 93 groups, but and then we have interest groups. So the interest groups are much longer term. They are set up because there's an area of interest for which a group of people wish to come together and discuss it. And usually what happens from the interest groups is they spin off into a specific working group, because then there's a focus or a specific area that members of the interest group feel are important. All of our groups have co-chairs. All of our groups are international. all of our groups are international. That is one of the wonderful things about RDA. It's international by design, and it's by the community for the community. So our groups, as we said, they're volunteers who sign up and decide that RDA is the place to help resolve these challenges that they have, and they do it together with colleagues and from around the world. The interest groups do have important outputs, and they are like guidelines or best practices or different types of outputs, and all of them are available on the website there. So, as I said, there are these 3 slides. The only reason I show you to them, it's very hard. So with 93 groups, it's very hard for us to map the landscape. It's one of our major challenges when we have new people coming along who want to know, what does RDA do, and are they working in an area of interest to me? And we have a huge problem. We're trying very hard, but to map the groups, because it's quite fluid, it's quite dynamic. We have new groups coming along every day, and 93 is quite a large number. But we try to cluster them here in these slides just to show you. So different groups working on domain science challenges, or groups of partnerships. Of course, we have partners. We have groups that have been formed between the CODATA and the Research Data Alliance, or the WDS, the World Data System, and the Research Data Alliance. And for example, one of the outputs of the collaboration with the World Data System from one of the groups is the Core Trust Seal repository certification for repositories. So other ones are, in community needs focus, so training and summer schools and things like that, reference and sharing ones, data stewardship and services, some basic, what we would call base infrastructure, technologically focused groups. But in all, as we said, 32 working groups with a specific timeline, and 61 interest groups working on different areas. So what do they do? Well, they actually produce these recommendations, and the recommendations are very simple. We say you create it, you adopt it, and you use it. Our groups present what they call a case statement. So they will give us an outline of their work plan, and they include in the work plan a series of adopters and implementers that will prove, if you like, that this particular output is necessary, is needed, and can be implemented. And they are efforts, of course, that can be applied in different to groups around within the community. May not apply to all. They don't have to be transversal, but they should be efforts that can start today. And as I said before, we have our recommendations are, I suppose, the major outputs from the working groups, but we do have supporting outputs and other outputs, and they're all as important. One point I would like to make about the recommendations is that any of the, due to the process that we apply in RDA, and all the outputs go out for community review in a similar way to how a standards body will issue its standards. We, in Europe, the recommendations that go through a certain process managed by the European Commission can be approved as if they were standards. So the Commission has a mechanism to allow organisations like the Research Data Alliance to have their outputs recognised on the same level as standards, which means that the Research Data Alliance has gone through a rigorous process to understand if the organisation follows a series of different, shall we say, processes, procedures, steps and quality. And then each of the outputs that we put through the cycle are, approved and recognised. What does that really mean? Well, apart from the fact that it gives a quality stamp to the actual outputs and to the work that the people who have generated these outputs, so our community, have done, but they can also be referenced in public procurement in Europe, which is important. So we're kind of proud of that achievement, and we're proud to offer this particular service to our community. And as I said, we don't own the recommendations or the outputs. We facilitate them, but they're by the community and they're for the community. And I say that a lot because it's very important that you understand that it's a grassroots organisation. the Research Data Alliance. It deals with all sorts of different data challenges and interoperability issues that the community or the researchers or the organizations themselves feel need to be addressed and need to be resolved. And we facilitate that. So apart from the working and the interest groups, and they sort of do their work virtually, I suppose you could say, on the web platform. So rd-alliance.org, and we facilitate that. Not all of our groups actually use the platform, in fairness. Many of them use GitHub and other things. But if you go and visit the website, you can see the different groups and you can see the different activities. And every group is open for you to join. I like to classify. So we have, as I said, 7,180, I think, members. Now, I'm often asked, well, are they all really active? Well, to me, they're all equally as important. Each member of the community is very, very important to us in RDA. I would classify them, if you look at it in a pyramid type way, that probably we have drivers, so those who are chairing the groups, setting up the groups, really driving the outputs. We have contributors, so active people within the groups, but maybe don't have a leadership role. And then we have observers, and they'd probably be the larger part of our triangle. But as I said, they are equally as important, and you don't have to be a driver to be part of RDA or to become part of it. We hope that you will one day. But many people start as observers, move on to being contributors, and then become drivers. And as I said, all are equally welcome. One of the wonderful things I've been told about RDA are our plenary meetings. So every 6 months, we go somewhere different around the world, and we offer our working and interest groups an event, a conference, usually 3 to 4 days, where they get down and work and do the work, have the meetings together to advance their working and interest group activities. And the plenary meetings, they bring together our community, but not just the existing ones, but also new potential members, and that's why we rotate around the world. We usually have every third plenary takes place in Europe. We usually have one other one in North America and then somewhere outside of those two. And you may wonder why that is. Well, the Research Data Alliance has been funded, it's an initiative, shall we say, funded, or originally funded is probably the best way of saying it, by the Australian government, the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies in the US, and the European Commission. And therefore, they have put the money on the table until now to support this particular platform and this particular activity. And therefore, obviously, there have been a financial capacity to dedicate, shall we say, resources to organising the events in the northern hemisphere. And now we are beginning as much as we can to try and engage with other countries around the world and get other support from other regions, and to shall we say, get return on investment from the European Commission and the US government and the Australian government. So the main focus, as I said, of these plenary meetings, apart from the networking aspects, we usually have about 600 people at our meetings. And it's a great opportunity because they come from all different disciplines, all different domains, all different backgrounds, but the common thing is working together to try and identify solutions to these data challenges, research data challenges that they have. The working meetings are there, and then, so you say, but how do I start a new group? Well, we have a mechanism called the Birds of a Feather. The Birds of a Feather is, we usually have anything between 15 to 20 Birds of a Feather meetings at a plenary, where the meeting is to understand the interest from other members of the community and begin the steps to starting a working or an interest group. Yeah? And we would typically, about 50% of those birds of a feathers go on to actually becoming new groups. So as I said, when they're in Europe, it's easier for the Europeans to attend, and that we understand that. That's why we try to rotate them as much as possible. But there are huge benefits of attending, apart from making these connections with, and we all know it's great to have video conferences and virtual meetings, but the physical getting together meeting is really an excellent opportunity. And of course also about exchanging the knowledge and learning about the new trends and things like that, and also contributing, making a concrete contribution to the acceleration of data infrastructure. So it might be a little bit far away, but it would be worth going if you could. And there are some opportunities to get there, by the way. But our next plenary is actually within the context of a collaboration that we have with our CoData and WDS. So I mentioned before, we are actually affiliate members of each other. So, and in 2016, we first organised International Data Week. And we had our RDA plenary meeting within this week. And we're doing it again in Gaborone and Botswana in November this year. And the wonderful thing is about this is that it will be our working meetings for RDA, the SciDataCon conference program there, I think peer-reviewed workshop and presentations focusing on different data challenges as well, all put together in with lots of different plenary sessions. So it will be a very intense but exciting week in Gaborone if you are able to come and join us there. After that, if not, and you might like a visit to Philadelphia, that's our next one in April 2019. And then we'll come back to Europe somewhere, not sure where yet, but in fall. So we do them in well, I can't say that with my Australian colleagues. They get upset with me when I say, Hilary, fall up in the northern hemisphere is not fall in the southern. So in September, October 2019, we will be back in Europe. Our previous meeting was in Berlin, so we had it in March this year. But I told you that we have some opportunities so the European grant or program has two specific support mechanisms to attend Gaborone at the moment open, and if you are interested you should apply before the 30th of August. The links are there. You will find them, I think, anyway on the website. One of them is for early career, so we have a long tradition in Europe of supporting early career professionals and enabling them to come and support some of the working or interest groups of their relevance to their research area, to interact with them and support them at the plenary meetings. And I think there are 7 grants available there. Or I like this one, mid-career or senior data professional or scientist. There are 5 grants to attend the plenary meeting in Gaborone, and I believe they will also issue similar programs for the US. So these are directly funded and supported and managed by the European grant. Yeah. So, what about RDA in Finland? Well, in a recent, so you see that nice coloured map there. In the latest version of the European support programme for the Research Data Alliance, there's a network of national nodes. And we have 9 nodes now in around Europe. With a further 13, so we hope that map will get nice and coloured over time between now and the end of 2019. And in fact, we have a node here in Finland, which is supported by CSC, and part of the activity that they do in raising awareness about RDA is indeed to organise meetings like this. We, as I said in the beginning, but I think it's worth repeating, the Finnish have been long-term supporters and actually were involved in the foundation of RDA from the very beginning. And we very much hope that the Finnish community will grow, that the participation and the drive from Finland in RDA will be ever more present. We hope that also what happens in Finland can be transmitted to RDA aspects, ideas and activities that are ongoing in research data in Finland would be very much of interest, and we provide and hope that that's part of the activity of the network, the National Node Network. So we are very as I said, grateful to them. And I hope that maybe if I come back or in a year's time, maybe the numbers will even have doubled. But anyway, so I think they have a group actually on the website, and if you sign up to the national group, I believe you transmit information in the Finnish language as well, yeah? So it's specifically, they create mailing lists for RDA in Finland and animate, shall we say, the group on the website. So I think you should spend the time in doing that. So I'm not sure about my time limits here, but I think I'm okay. But I'm actually on my last slide now. So I give you a call to action. So I think you should sign up as an RDA community member. I think you should join or at least view the working and interest groups. Take some time to navigate and have a look at the groups that could be of interest or relevance to you. I think you should definitely join the national group, because that will also help you understand updates and activities that are going on, and help you understand maybe a little bit more about RDA. I do understand that it's very broad. It's there's an awful lot of activity going on, and it's very hard sometimes to navigate in it. We are doing our best. We have web developments and communication updates all the time. We're doing our best to make that even more and more simple. But I think that the Finnish, let's call it node or help desk, would be delighted and happy to help you to do that. If you have the opportunity, do try and attend a plenary meeting. They really are very excellent networking meetings, and very concrete activities go on there too. But it's a wonderful, wonderful community. And then I suppose you could say that if you don't see a working or an interest group of the area in which you are specifically interested, well then that's where you could set one up with your colleagues from around the world. Invite them to use the Research Data Alliance as an open, independent and bottom-up platform, because that's what it is. Well, we ask you, as I said, to adhere to specific guiding principles. We have a very simplified process. We do check the case statements to make sure there's no overlapping, to make sure that the working or the interest group proposed is valid, and things like that there is some adoption there. But we very much allow the community and the people on the ground who need the solutions to actually propose them and work on them, and we try and facilitate that and promote it as much as possible. And of course you could be like the organisation that I talked about at the beginning, and maybe you could, if you are in that position, adopt a recommendation or an output from RDA, and hopefully resolve some of the problem of your users, your researchers, or your own problems itself. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention. The contact details, I suppose you'll get a copy of the slides, but feel free. I am always available for anything. As I said, I have wonderful colleagues here in Finland, but I am available. My doors are always open for any request, any question, or anything you might need. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you very much. We are following the schedule, so it's actually time for a question if there is something. I have one question here, over here. I hand you the microphone here.
Thank you, Per. Thank you, Hilary, for clear presentation. My name is Tomasz Malkiewicz from the Nordic infrastructure collaboration called NAIC. What we do actually is very in line with what you do. I like the fact that it's a grassroots movement and so on. We are following and supporting actually the things that you do, and now we are also supporting actually to you so that you get also other nodes in the Nordics, for instance DAIC. Now my observation, indeed you've mentioned that you have the quite ambitious vision. Well, okay. I may agree with this. It's fine, but now for the what you have planned to do to actually help researchers, as I see it, you've mentioned the social and technical boundaries, overcoming those. I'd like to add two that are, in my opinion, even more important and more crucial. Those are political and legal issues. Thank you.
just to be sure, thank you for your question. You would like me to answer how is RDA dealing with political and legal?
Yes, maybe actually. Sorry, maybe to be more precise, since I'm not that much acquainted with perhaps what you do, so perhaps I'm simply not aware. But since you on your slides you did have emphasized the social and technical, so perhaps if you could say, are you, and if so, what are you doing towards the political and legal boundaries?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so bearing in mind that we are, as I said, a bottom-up organisation, and in order to preserve that, we try not to set agendas. Okay, we are very broad as an organisation. However, it is true that as part of the activities that and the outputs that come out of RDA, there are certain trends and policy aspects that can be, shall we say, tackled. Yes, I'll come to that. Well, I'd talk about the politics first and then the legal after. Is that okay? So from terms of political aspects, shall we say, we do by nature or by default end up having some, how would you say, policy insights. I would also say that we're quite careful about not issuing too many policy level documentation and everything. It changes the nature very much so, and there are other organizations that do that with whom we collaborate. So I would probably say that CoData has more of a policy level activity. In terms of legal, so as Leif kindly reminded me, we have a legal interoperability interest group that came up with a very interesting set of guidelines and outputs. It's a series of best practices and recommendations for the legal interoperability. So again, you know, as part of the grassroots, as part of the organization of the working and interest groups, we deal with you know, those particular aspects, but we do very much focus on the social and the technical. I mean, they're part of it. I would like to go back also to your Nordic comment before. So yes, indeed, yeah, we would hope, and we had a wonderful and very interesting discussion yesterday with your colleagues from from Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, as well as the Finnish. And I would very much hope that very, very soon that we would get more national nodes. I really do believe in this national node aspect, because I think that it brings RDA closer to the people and to the community and to our, you know, our major stakeholders, which are the researchers and of course the innovators, as I said. So we very much appreciate your support and for it, and I hope to be back soon, maybe in a different country, explaining to your researchers all about RDA in Denmark, Norway, or in Sweden. So thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you, Hilary. Before I hand over to Leif to introduce the panel, I just remind that after the panel, we will have a panel now, and after the panel, there will be people here from CSC, Damien Le Carpentier and Ansu Kainolainen, who will present some real services or discuss. We're available to discuss services that we develop as part of the FAIR Data project and behalf of the Ministry of Education and Culture, and the EUDAT services that we are developing at CSC together with our peers around Europe to serve European researchers and Finnish researchers, of course. Just a reminder, so the tables here to your right will be there, and where you can discuss with these people and have some research data candy or so, if you want to. Okay, now I hand over to Leif to introduce the panel, and again thank you to Hilary and allow you to take your seat. So welcome, Leif, and you introduce yourself also.
Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot, Per. Yes, my name is Leif Laaksonen, and I'm part of the PERS group, the Research, Infrastructure and Policy, RAP group. So I'm happy to see. Let me first thank you, the audience, because I'm so happy to see so many of you. I was a bit scared. We would be the only one. I mean, the panel here by alone. So, but I'm sure we'll try to cope with it. Can I ask the panelists? You know you have been asked in advance, so can I ask you to come up here and we organize ourselves? That takes a minute or two, so please, I don't know on which side I should stand, but please move the chairs a bit closer. So. I have prepared the panelists in advance with a few questions, which I mean I have new questions. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so what we are trying to look at now, we had an introduction by Per and Hillary, and now we are trying to go a bit deeper into what is actually done in Finland. And I will also ask people or the panelists, and if of course the audience must also give the must be given the opportunity to make a few questions about how we are doing and what we should actually do. Are we doing the right things? That's always good to think. And to start this, I just ask each panelist to give a very, very short introduce yourself. I'm not going to introduce you, so I give you the opportunity. And I also ask you to give a bit of information of your link or your viewing angle. Why are you here? Why are you in the panel? But I only give you 2 to 3 minutes max, so please.
Good morning. I'm Aki Salo from Academia Finland, Senior Science Advisor. And I have been working for about 5 years dealing with open science issues broadly. And lately more concentrating on research data. And about Academia Finland, it's a funding organization, as you know. We request the funded projects to open their research data publications, and if the research data is not possible to open, at least the metadata should be published. And we have our own open science group led by Jyrki Hakapää. It has been running for 2 years, and together we are taking care of all of the open science issues. Then we also open up our own questionnaires, what we do for researchers. And we are actively involved in this DMP tool, developing and setting the guidelines. Then we are part of the Science Europe working groups, and one is dealing open publications, one is FP9, but the one where I'm working in, it's about research data management. And this working group, it's very close to this RDA DMP common standards work, what they are doing. This group is led by Peter Dawn, and I think he's also in this RDA group. So we are following carefully what they are doing here.
Please keep short, so we give.
But this is the most important part, I think. Following also DCC and EU work, and the aim is to align research data management. Of course, we are involved also in this Unify Open Science and Data group. Jyrki Hakapää is there, and Horizon 2020 Infrastructures Committee, Merja Särkioja. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, that was a Spanish 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, Sami Niinimäki from the Ministry of Education and Culture. So the question was actually why I'm here. Well, many thanks for the invitation. I'm always happy to help you out and come to talk about open science. That's what I've been doing actually for the last 6 years. I counted the years this morning. That's the time I've been spending at the ministry, and all the time dealing with open science and research infrastructure. But to go a bit further with the...
I'm here.
Yep. I mean, talking about what the ministry does. Okay, so as you know, we have been running a set of initiatives for many years now, and all those have been somehow led, or let's say at least very heavily facilitated by the ministry, and so now we feel that it is time to make open science and open research data a cross-cutting horizontal issue and part of everyday actions we make. So we want to, in this way, we want to engage the stakeholders and give them the possibility to further this cause. And so from the beginning of this year, I mean, we have no initiatives anymore going on, but I mean, we feel that we are going further ahead and making this business as usual. But of course, we need also somebody to be the central, in some sense, and for that we have Henrika Mustajoki and the Federation of Finnish Learned Societies to sort of like carry the torch in some sense. And okay, but that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years, and now I'm more kind of like sitting back maybe and watching and wondering how this should be done. And but that said, I mean, the ministry funds many type of things, and research infrastructure is one, of course. And for we managed to extend the scope of the user base in some sense. Up to now, they were only targeted towards the higher education institutes, and from now on they will all be available also for the research institutes. So that will, in some sense, harmonize the landscape in Finland when it comes to using the infrastructure, and that's one of the big advancements we have made lately.
You can save some of the answers. There are other questions as well, so I mean,
good,
you don't
good.
have to empty all them by now.
But
So.
Now that I started, I'll just mention the 4 points. That was the first one of them, and so and then the what I feel is the backbone of everything we do here is the long-term preservation, and that's where the ministry is involved. That is something we feel is the most important thing. Oh, good. And third point, we also fund many other things that don't come to mind, right away. But we do fund digitalization work, and we do fund archives that actually provide lots of data, also for the use of research. So I mean that should be remembered also. And my favorite point of all, I mean. It hasn't been talked about very much, but I mean, I've also...
That's the short one.
That's the shortest one,
yeah.
Yes. We, at the ministry, we don't take, the glory of it, but I mean, we fund and appoint the Finnish National Board of Research Integrity, which is essential in this whole work. And that's my last point. Now to
Thank you. Yeah, very short and... okay, let's try to squeeze it. Yes.
Hi, so I'm Henrika, and as Sami kindly said, I've taken the role of Head of Development at the Finnish Federation of Finnish Learned Societies that's got the new role of pulling together the entire Finnish research community to start driving our goals and policies and guidelines on how we're going to take open science, open research further in Finland. So that's the new thing on the scene in Finland. We're putting together a set of working groups, secretariats, and an executive board to create a open and inclusive structure that the entire research community, that's universities, research institutes, libraries, the funding, the archives, can come together and work to solve the issues that we've got in Finland with a direct collaboration with all the international work like RDA to be able to implement and see whatever roadblocks there are in Finland to take on board the guidelines and recommendations that have been created internationally. So I'm in charge of kicking this off and facilitating the new structures of working together as a research community.
Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Leena. I'm an executive director of UNIFI, which is the National Rectors Council in Finland. And UNIFI carried out a so-called ATD project that was financed by the Ministry of Education and Culture, and as a result of that project there was published in June an open science and open data action plan, and more about that later.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation to be present at this panel. My name is Heidi Laine, and I'd like to think that I represent the kind of the grassroots or bottom up of open research data. To put it diplomatically, to put it less diplomatically, the unfunded mandate that represents that is the Finnish Committee for Research Data. We are the national member of CODATA, which is the data committee of International Council for Science. We are part of a network of national committees coordinated by the Council of Finnish Academies. So our kind of mandate comes from the Finnish learned societies, and that's
okay.
That's
That's very short. Okay, now we know the panelists, and we know how easily it is to talk, and so now usually I tried to turn around the questions in a way, so I started from the end. So my first question, Sami, of course, as he's an eager young man, so he's always in the answer already in the introduction. But I would, my first question in a way, which the audience you can think about and comment as well, what are the successes of Finland so far, really? What do you think, I mean, you can look at it from your angle, from your employer or your organization, but you can also think about in general, what are the successes really we have been able to achieve? So if, Heidi, you can start now, we do the opposite. Yeah, please.
Okay. There's been a lot of good work done on the policy level. The Open Science and Research Initiative by the ministry did a lot of good work. Most of the universities have nowadays their own data policies, I think. And I feel that there is a strong consensus about the importance of research data management and fair data. That is definitely a success, I feel. We have a solid research data infrastructure. I think CSC is doing amazing work, acting as a, well, nationally, but also acting as a kind of a node between the international and national level. The Finnish Committee for Research Data did a data citation roadmap, which is still to be implemented, but still there are a lot of good policies, and now it is the time to act upon them. I'm here wearing primarily my Finnish Committee for Research Data hat, but I want to mention also the work at Open Knowledge Finland Association, their work on open science, which I have been involved as well with a couple of past years. There is a My Data conference coming up, which is already the third one. And My Data is about creating practices for human-centered, citizen-centered management of personal data, which has also strong links to research data discussions. So that is something that Finland and the Open Knowledge Association is a definite pioneer globally.
Thank you. Lena.
Thank you. I would like to first answer why we have achieved all these what we have already done. I would say that Finland is a country of low hierarchies, and when it comes, for example, to research and administration, and also we are a very little small country, and so it is easy to gather all stakeholders around the same table. And for instance, I would say that efficiency and transparency and other performance-based values, they are adopted already many years ago in Finnish academia, and so it enhances also adopting the open science and open data principles and practices, and also it is always have to be said that we have very good archives and databases, and they really must be utilized and used wisely from now on. But what are those successes? So I would say that internationally we are trend makers, and we are in the forefront of when it comes to open science and open data, and also actually we have this national plan for open science and open data now, and all parties, universities, TSV, CSC, among others, have committed to it, and we have now know how to implement the plan, I would say. Thank you.
I don't know if there'd be anything left to say for the rest of us after that. Based on Heidi's great list of successes and the actual achievements, and what Lena said about us as a country and as a community, for me the greatest success is that we are here today with the sense that we want to move forward together as a community. I've spent the last months visiting all different stakeholders in the research community. And what's the most palpable outcome of those meetings is the sense of, let's do it together. Let's not sit in our silos. Let's not think about who we are and where we come from. Let's look at the issues and move forward. So for me, the greatest success is that we have a great community. We've worked very hard. We've done wonderful things, and we've had the great basis. So I think we're all going to just move forward quickly together with this approach as a community.
Yes, I totally agree with all the before mentioned points, and I would like to emphasize also that the many organizations have understood the strategic value of research data and the role of research data in modern research making. It's not something we can just discard after the project. No, nothing at all. So to give some examples, the University of Helsinki has their own very let's say impactful services and leading and making and being a role model for not only nationally but actually internationally, and getting famous for the work in some sense. So actually the strategic value of this open science in general is understood in many places in Finland, and but University of Helsinki is one example. University of Jyväskylä possibly one great example also, and many more. It's a bit unfair to start dropping names here, but still, I mean, great work, and this is the future. This is the way to attract money and the way to attract top researchers. So I mean, that's the way to succeed in the future. And on a ministerial level, I heard somebody give credit to the working infrastructure, and it's possibly so that why we have a working infrastructure is the law. Is because in the law on the control of public administration information management, this is tietohallintalaki in Finnish, there is a requirement to use the enterprise architecture. So actually we have done that, and it is possibly because of this that we have succeeded in making a working infrastructure. But it is still a case to be proven. What would be the alternative? So I don't know, but I mean, I would like to think that this has been the right way to do things in Finland.
Okay, and I think all has been said already, but just to point out 3 different aspects. I think Ministry of education and culture has done a lot during the last 10 years, I think, actually, in promotion of open science, and all of the Finnish actors, stakeholders, have been involved in promotion of the open research data and open science issues. And one to mention also is Finnish Social Science Data Archive in Tampere. It has been active for, I think, almost 20 years in archiving research data and also opening of the research data. And one very kind of special national initiative has been also DMP Tuuli, that has produced national DMP template and guidelines, and it has been accepted broadly in universities, funders, research institutes, and that's very important. I have noticed in during my work in Science Europe working group that it's quite exceptional also to make something like that happen also. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Now when I'm listening to your comments, I can also see that the funding side is on, depending on how you sit, but on the left side, and the other people on the right side. So I don't know if this was a natural separation or something else. But anyway, now we have heard a bit about different views of success. I want to hear from the audience comments, because, I mean, are we all happy this is just a success, or should we have done something differently, or are there still something which you have in your mind and you haven't had the opportunity to publicly say it? Now it's the opportunity. So please. I know it's a tough job to get the Finns to say anything. They look the other opposite direction when they are asked. Okay, I'll give you the opportunity to make the questions later on. But I thought this would have been. Oh, somebody.
Actually, I would like to ask Hilary one question. I mean, thanks for the great presentation, and I'm a bit slow because you know I wasn't able to formulate my question when was asked to and when was given the possibility. But I mean, thinking you have so many groups and so many people working in and volunteering in there. Okay, so I mean, thinking that. There are also people who oppose research data and let's say possibly want to slow the movement in some sense. Have you encountered trolls or any, let's say, bad guys coming to somehow sabotage the whole thing? Do you have any experience on this?
No, I have to be honest, we don't. Fortunately, though, you know, there's always a first time. No, we don't. We do. I think one of our challenges might be that, of course, there are some people who would like to use the brand or the platform for their own good, but it's still within the realm of the research data, and as I said, we try very much not to be too prescriptive or anything. So far, no, we haven't actually. I had a question yesterday actually from one of your colleagues about the publishers, and one of the interesting, points was, well, what does RDA feel about the publishers? Because clearly the publishers have, a new business model to set up, and are they using RDA and people's volunteer time and things to gain benefits? Again, my answer was, well, as long as people adhere to our guiding principles, which are fairly basic but fairly clear, we can't say anything about it. And if, we provide that platform for what some people view as the bad guys. I don't know if we have any publishers here, so don't be offended. I'm sure you know. But what people view as the bad guys, coming together with those who need the solutions, that's not a bad thing. And we would have to be optimistic about that. And so far, again, we haven't had any specific, shall we say, difficulties. And the publishers are quite a strong group in RDA and have backed it quite a lot. again, they have a business model in mind, but as long as we would see that they are, collaborating together with people on the ground, it's viewed so far as a positive thing, but something we clearly need to keep our eye on. But this is where I go back to the political statements. We have to be careful about political statements that we would make. So I don't know if that answered your question, but sort of. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was a very good question, and I'm happy, Sami, you woke up early, but or later than early. But it's
the coffee is kicking.
Yeah, I know it's. You're Heidi. Okay.
If I can comment, as being someone who has been organizing a boycott against Elsevier, you might expect me to be the first person to call them bad guys, but I really don't want to. I don't like that narrative at all, and I'm kind of glad that the publishers are involved in RDA, because there needs to be a dialogue, and the research community really should get out of this bad guy narrative and kind of look in the mirror maybe a little bit more, and be more proactive and not just react to things that publishers are presenting and doing, and really take the initiative in our own hands. And I think with the RDA we have the perfect platform to do that. So.
We open the lid.
Yes, it's very slow here in Finland. My name is Saara Malkamäki and I come from Sitra, and we have been doing work with health and social data and bringing this new national player to Finland that would combine social and healthcare data in the future. But my question is more on the public-private collaboration that we a bit started to discuss now, and how do you see that future? Is the academic research in silo, or is it much more involved in the public-private partnerships, and how that should be developed in Finland or anywhere?
Yes, who wants to, the funders or the grassroots people? Oh, Heidi. Okay.
I can continue. Well, I know that the Open Knowledge Finland does a lot of collaboration with companies. Of course, not all of the activities have to do with science, but I think one of the principles of openness is that it's open to everyone, and when we open research data, even though I'm not always super fond of the concept open, I like the fair principles. I think it brings a lot more nuance to the discussion, because with publications it's a more straightforward, but with data there are a lot more shades of gray when it comes to openness. But anyway, the research data should be available as far as it's possible to businesses, and who better to help in creating innovation on top of the data than the researchers. But I don't have a lot of personal experience on this, but it's generally I consider it a positive thing.
Yeah, and I think this is of course a very good question, but it's also an elementary problem, because everybody thinks there should be more interaction with the industry, but nobody seems to really be doing, or there are no really strategical thing. Do you want to? Sami is grabbing the microphone heavily. I have Sanna also, but it's. Do you want to?
Just to say that we are approaching this topic. We started discussing it many years ago, and we still need to discuss it. And but I mean, like Heidi said, I mean, it's we as funders and as the related to the using of the money. I mean, we set some regulations there, and we want the data to be as open as possible and as close as necessary. But then again, I mean, it's up to Academia Finland to define more stricter rules. But I would guess that, I mean, we are following the lead of the framework programs of the European type of things. The Horizon 2020 is approaching more and more this open data stuff, and but clearly we have some issues still to tackle, and I would think that, I mean, possibly using sophisticated infrastructure, we can find a balance where this openness is possible, and with all sorts of data, and bearing in mind that the quality of the data is crucial here, so that, I mean, somebody has to verify the results, and that should be kind of like the angle that we should approach the data issue, so that if there is no openness, nobody can actually say for sure what we are doing, so or what we are funding actually, and it can be total nonsense. And for that reason alone, I mean, there should be some sort of control and some sort of peer review mechanism available for the data also. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm moving away from this private public discussion. So my name is, if there's someone who wanted to comment that. No, please, okay. We can come back. Okay. So my name is Sanna Sorvari. I'm from Finnish Meteorological Institute. I'm a coordinator of S-Reactris, which is one of these data producers, and also working with a cluster of research infrastructures in the field of environment. I'm really happy about all the progress that has been happening in the open science, and particularly with the open research data internationally, in Nordics, and now in the national level. As normally what happens when there's something that everybody believes and really feels that it's very important to tackle, there's a lot of different instances starting to work on that. And now we are starting to face a quite complex landscape of actors and different representations of bodies. So being as an actor of research data producer and thinking that I want to be participating in many important processes and initiatives, and thinking about all the levels of national, Nordic and international level, I as an actor need to know where to put my contributions. So what I'm now asking here at the national level, so how you see your roles, and who would be the person or the instance to make the landscape for us, that we know where we are coming.
Yeah, don't step too far now. The next question is coming into this field. Do you, Aki, wanted to comment shortly? Henrika wanted to on the business.
Little bit of the previous question still. As mentioned here, yes, we do request researchers to open their data when it's possible, and of course it's allowed to open the data later on, but at some point after the project. So also there can be this embargo period for business purposes. I understand it's important to also consider, but we don't fund so much of the applied research. Tekes is doing that.
And about the where to put your effort, I guess that's exactly what we're trying to do with the national coordination, is to try to clarify the landscape. And one of the key elements will be to identify national priorities in international collaboration, and to create platforms for people in particular areas interested in to come together and have conversations and find the strategic partnerships to do the development work we want to do. The landscape is incredibly complex, as you said, and it's getting only more complex. So we need to come together and improve on our communication strategies and create the opportunities for people to come together and create the groups that they can then effectively be agents of change. So that is one of the key strategic aims for the coordination body that we are putting together the second half of this year. So you'll be hearing from us.
This was already a step into the next. You have a direct comment on this. Sorry? Oh, okay, you get the microphone over. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Chris Arillo from CSCIT Center for Science. I work with EU Data Services. We were talking about open data, and according to in our previous, I think it's from Aki Salo said about opening up data and a lot of other things. But my basic question here is that, I want your opinion on how do you think we have to handle sensitive data?
I don't know if we have the full evening and afternoon time. That's a relevant question, and I think let me approach it from another angle in a way, because I would like to go to the next question which I had, which we were already into a bit, and that's who. I mean, I understand Sanna's question, and when I was more active, I had the same problem. When you are active in many different places, you don't always know really, are you talking by yourself as a person? Are you representing your organization? Are you representing Finland? And when you come back, you don't really always know where to take this information. And so my next question is related to the process of leading this. I mean, who do you think should be leading, and how should this be led in a way that meets the questions or requirements? Sanna said that eventually there will be a lot of people, there is a lot of expertise, but how can we get this knowledge and information together, and how should it be led in a way that we don't get silos, we don't get a top down? I would prefer a more bottom up, as of course, but we have to have some kind of balance between the top down and bottom up. So how do you see this? I'm not asking for fully administratively. I don't ask you to put the block schema on the blackboard, but ideas, how should this be led? Because this is the crucial thing to go forward. I think we have successes, we have kicked away a lot of good things, they are moving, but we need something more to keep this really going up as a rocket into the sky. So I'll give it to the ladies' side here first. Sorry, guys.
Thank you. The scenario that Leif just described really resonated with me, going to an international event and representing Finland, and then coming back here and not having a clear, well-defined pipeline where to put all this information and contacts and knowledge. And that is exactly the challenge that the Finnish Committee for Research Data has been tackling. And it has a lot to do with resources, obviously, money. I think we need this a lot of this policy level action, at least when it comes to researchers, practicing researchers. It's something that is done on the side and based on volunteer effort, and that's fine to a certain extent. But for example, at the next CoData General Assembly, it's very likely that I will be the Finnish representative. I'm a doctoral student working on a personal grant, so I'm happy to do it, and it's a great opportunity for me personally. But I think we should ask the question as a community: are these really the soldiers that we want to put that put this effort on? It needs to be. Whatever the solution is, it needs to be sustainable and permanent and well resourced.
I would like to answer on behalf of universities, and I would like to tell you that really universities want to be at the heart of this process, and together with their all important stakeholders, to mention Academy of Finland, for instance. But we really need one body that acts as a coordinator. I would like to speak about kind of leading body, but coordinating body. And I think TSV is a great to take that job. So, Henrik, you may go on.
I think the conversations I've had with all the stakeholders is echoing Lena's point. We do want a coordinated action in Finland, and it will have to have several different elements. First, it needs to have big enough boots, broad enough shoulders to make decisions that stick when the time comes to make decisions. At the same time, it needs to be very inclusive and accessible for everybody to take part and find their own strategic partnerships to advance different aspects of open research, open data, open science, open scholarship, whichever is the appropriate term. And we need to get all our expertise come together when we need to make difficult decisions. So we've kind of created, based on the ATD project, a model that we're going to trial out. We're going to have some events in September, October, for people to take part and contribute to setting up the process of coordinating the open science efforts. And then we're just going to roll on and give it our full go with the whole heart and see if it works. If we've made mistakes, we'll correct them and we'll adjust the coordinating system that we are creating. But we've got a lot of energy and we need to start channeling that energy to create the change that's all bubbling there and happening, and we'll need to move it forward together.
Totally agree with everything said here. One thing we possibly failed is the transition from the set of initiatives we ran from the ministry to the current state. So possibly the transition should have been a bit smoother, a bit faster. We should have started the planning a bit earlier. And so, I mean, okay, this might have created some confusion, clearly, and totally understand that. And but like the saying goes, possibly this confusion is at a higher level now. After all these troubles, now we are much smarter. But I mean, again, I mean, one central neutral body like Federation of Finnish Learned Societies is the possible best choice imaginable. Kind of like a quarterback. I don't know. Sport analogies are always bad. But I mean, again, I mean, and just adding to the what was said, that the federation has also international links, which is crucial here. With this is not something. I mean, we of course we do much nationally, which was one of the given questions initially to this panel. What can be done nationally and what internationally? But I mean. For sure, we need to set our things together on an international level and see that what we do here will not be a dead end or something like that.
Yes, just briefly to agree that I think the TSV it's good coordinating body there and need resources from Ministry of Education. And in all, it's still cooperative effort. I think it needs also funders, CSC, and data repositories, Unifi, maybe Tulanet, and all other important actors.
Okay, thank you. We still have a few minutes time, so I would like echoes from the audience about this. Oh, Damien, gosh, okay.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. Yesterday we had a meeting discussing RDA and the possibility to establish a Nordic collaboration around research data. And I would like to have your view on whether the Nordic level could be a relevant level to discuss and address things in a coordinated way also across different countries.
Thank you, Damien. Direct reflections from... Oh, you. Okay.
I mean, just shortly, I mean, I'm very fond of the Nordic collaboration. So, I mean, if there are advancements, let's say, before we get to the European Open Science Cloud, if there is possibly a Nordic Open Science Cloud, then that's just fantastic. I mean, and it will be kind of like operable together with all the international infrastructure. So it's actually it should be the first step in some sense. And so I mean, go for it.
Hey, the comments from yeah, good.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any answers yet, but really we have realized that that question in the network of Nordic Rectors Council in news, and we will have a next meeting in October, and this will be on agenda, so we will discuss about this.
Great. Still, of course.
Hello, my name is Victoria Sinclair. I'm a researcher at the University of Helsinki working in weather and climate modelling. And I have to say, from a researcher point of view, it is very confusing about what you're meant to do. But I say that the people like myself and the students I work with are very keen to do the right thing. It's very hard to figure out what the right thing to do is. And then once you figure that out, you still need to do it in practice. And I work with terabytes of data. So then suddenly when I'm trying to archive 2 terabytes of data, this becomes a major challenge. So I think there needs to be more effort to make it more practical instructions for grassroots researchers who want to do the right thing, but just generally can't manage to do it.
Oh, good. We got support. So that's a heavy question now. So Heidi wants to start.
Yeah, I love you. Thank you for bringing up the doing the right thing. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about incentives when it comes to open or fair research data, and I think doing the right thing as an incentive has been overlooked. We tend to think about merits and metrics and stuff like that, and that should be really taken into consideration. I'm in my PhD work. I've been interviewing researchers who have done this very kind of radical open collaboration, and that's one of their key motivations and drivers has been doing the right thing. And there was a question that we were sent beforehand about who should lead this kind of movement, and I want to answer that, even though Leif didn't specifically put it. Researchers should really be the drivers, and early career researchers as well should be engaged far more into these discussions. And I know that it's easier said than done, stopping the preaching to the choir, but we should really put our heads together and come up with solutions on how to get from the like I said with the first question. There's a lot of successes on the policy level, but less so on the other levels under the policy level. So that's a big challenge, but also an opportunity, as they tend to be.
There are a few things. We've had some efforts nationally to create online instructions and courses on research ethics and open science, and they are an effort to make sure that everybody gets, access to information regardless of where they work, and we need to work improving those. And one of the elements that we've had conversations around in this coordination is that we'll need to keep the researcher in the centre of everything we do, because there'll be no open research if there are no researchers and if there is no research. So that is part of every conversation we have, is saying, what does it mean? What does this mean to an individual researcher? And I hope that in this coordination effort that we are commencing now, we will see quicker transfer of knowledge and guidelines to the actual research work. So that is our effort, because I wholeheartedly have heard that story many times over, that it is difficult, even if you have the motivation, to know how you move forward.
Indeed, the local support, I think it's very crucial and important, and the libraries currently is doing an excellent job in universities. But also I think in many research institutes there are excellent progress. Also in THL, National Health and Welfare Institute, they are doing excellent work also on data of sensitive matters, so you could probably look there. But I think UNIFI has done excellent work of this action program on open science and data, and this local support, and that's one of the action points there, and that's very important.
Okay, thank you. I think we warmed up, and I could see many hands raised. I apologize, I can't really give you the words anymore because we need to wrap up or stop for the next. I want to thank, of course, the panelists, so give them a big hand. And then a big hand to you as well, because after all, you were not all Finns. You opened your wordings, and we got some good questions and comments. So thank you, everybody. See you again on the field. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the panel, thanks for the audience. I want to remind that some people from CEC will be available here to discuss data service in practice. Since these questions have been raised here, what do I do with my terabytes of data? They are very practical questions. So with that, we close this research data breakfast from Helsinki University Think Corner. And thank you, everybody. Thank you.